My name is Minnie Kratz, and I'm 34 years old. The night my life cracked open, a man I'd never seen before answered the front door of the house I paid off with my own hands. It was 3 a.m. My flight had been canceled after hours of delays. I was too stubborn to take the hotel voucher, too tired to argue with the gate agents. I just wanted my own bed, my own shower, my own quiet. I drove home half awake, pulled into my driveway, and only then realized I'd left my house keys in the jacket I'd hung in the airport hotel closet. Classic. No big deal, I thought. My fiancé Ryan would be home, probably half asleep with a crime show murmuring in the background. I'd ring the bell. He'd be a little startled. I'd apologize. We'd laugh about it in the morning. I pressed the doorbell and waited, hugging my duffel closer against the cold. Heavy footsteps approached from inside, too heavy. Not Ryan's light, quick tread that I'd memorized without meaning to. The deadbolt slid back. The door opened. A man I didn't know stood barefoot in my doorway, wearing nothing but jeans, hair messed up, chest bare. He smelled like my shower steam and my laundry detergent. He blinked at me like I was the one who didn't belong there. Then he turned his head toward the stairs and called out, lazy and loud, "Babe, someone's here to see you." And from upstairs, from our bedroom, in that sleepy, familiar voice I knew better than my own heartbeat, I heard Ryan say, "Tell them I'm asleep." Everything after that slowed down, like someone dragged a finger across the timeline of my life and hit half speed. The stranger's eyes flicked back to me. I watched the moment recognition dawned. The tiny widening of his pupils, the way his jaw tightened. His face went pale. "Oh man," he muttered under his breath. He slipped past me like I was a problem he didn't know how to solve and jogged around the side of the house. I caught a flash of a silver Lexus parked 2 doors down. I didn't chase him, didn't scream, didn't throw my bag at his head like I wanted to. I just stood there in my own doorway, duffel strap cutting into my shoulder, and thought very calmly, this is my house, paid in full. What the hell is going on? But before I tell you what happened next, you need to know how much it took for me to get this house, and why walking into that scene at 3 a.m. wasn't just cheating, it was trespassing on the only thing I'd ever truly claimed as mine. I've been an electrician for 12 years. Not the cute, I changed a light fixture in my apartment kind. I'm talking industrial electrician. Panels that could fry you in under a second if you're careless. Cramped conduits in 100-degree attics. Factories where a downed line at 2 a.m. means 100 people lose a shift. I started right out of high school, while my classmates took on student loans and dorm assignments. I pulled on steel-toe boots and became the apprentice who got every job nobody else wanted. 60-hour weeks. Graveyard calls, belly crawling through 6-inch spaces with a headlamp and a tool belt that weighed more than my weekend groceries. I remember lying on my back under a panel once, sweat running into my ears, my mentor barking codes at me while I tried not to think about how one wrong move would turn me into a cautionary tale. The first 5 years were brutal. I was the one who answered the 2 a.m. calls when a production line went down. The one who stayed until sunrise to get the system back online while everyone else went home to sleep. But I earned every certification I have, paid for them myself, studied in my truck during lunch breaks, highlighted manuals in the break room while everyone else watched the game. About 6 years ago, I realized I was either going to die for someone else's company or build my own. So I bought a beat-up white van that rattled any time it passed 40 miles an hour, slapped Kratz Industrial Electric on the side in vinyl letters, and took every job that came my way. No job was too small. No customer too annoying. I showed up when I said I would. I cleaned up after myself. I charged fair rates and never cut corners. Word spread. Within 2 years, I had a small crew, 3 solid guys who knew their stuff and didn't whine about getting dirty. I started specializing in industrial automation and control systems. That's the fancy way of saying I wire the robots that make your stuff. PLCs, servo drives, VFDs, HMI panels, the alphabet soup that scares off a lot of regular electricians because it requires actual thinking, not just pulling wire. Business was good, not flashy, but steady. I didn't blow money on toys or vacations. While everyone else was financing jet skis and weekend getaways, I was throwing every extra dollar at one thing: my house. It's a 3-bedroom, 1,800-square-foot place about 20 minutes outside the city. Nothing that would make a magazine spread, but it has a decent yard, an old oak tree that drops acorns like hail in the fall, and a 2-car garage I turned into a workshop. I paid it off 3 years ago. 8 years of aggressive payments, over time, hand cramps from writing checks I could barely afford, skipping nights out so I could drop another 100 toward the principal. Every time I logged into my mortgage account and watched the number tick down, it felt like buying myself 1 square foot of freedom at a time. Best decision I ever made. My truck is my other pride and joy, a 2019 Ford F-250 I bought in cash. Weather guard toolboxes on both sides, custom rack for ladders and conduit, inverter in the bed so I can run tools and my laptop on site. It cost me $48,000 out the door, and I didn't finance a single cent. You can call it paranoia if you want. I call it survival. I watched my uncle get cleaned out in his divorce. He'd built an HVAC business for 20 years. When his marriage imploded, he lost half of everything: house, business equity, retirement. Had to buy his ex out just to keep his company name on the door. It nearly broke him. I was 22 when I watched him move into a one-bedroom apartment while his ex kept the house he'd wired himself. I promised myself that wouldn't be me. So when people say I'm weird about money, what they really mean is I learned my lesson from someone else's disaster. I met Ryan 4 years ago at a friend's wedding. He was one of the groomsmen, standing in the second row with a crooked tie and a smile that made it look like he was in on some private joke. I was there as the electrician who'd done too many odd jobs for the bride's family to politely decline the invitation. We ended up at the same bar table during the reception. It took him exactly 5 minutes to ask what I did for a living, and exactly 10 to realize I knew more about electrical loads than he'd ever wanted to. I work for my dad's company, he said, swirling his drink. HVAC supply and distribution. Dawson Climate Solutions. You probably haven't heard of it. I snorted. I wired your warehouse 5 years ago. His eyes widened. No way. You're Kratz Electric? Kratz Industrial Electric, I corrected automatically. He grinned. It's honestly kind of hot that you know what a PLC is, he said. I rolled my eyes, but I laughed too. He was easy to talk to, funny without being mean. He had this way of leaning in like you were the only person in the room, even when the DJ was blasting wedding classics and someone's aunt was screaming lyrics off-key 2 feet away. We started dating a month later. He worked as an administrative assistant at his dad's company, nothing glamorous, but stable. He helped manage orders, scheduled deliveries, kept things moving in the office. He said he wanted more someday, but for now he liked the security. We moved in together after 18 months. A year after that, he proposed with a ring that was a little too nice for his salary, but he said he'd been saving. Wedding venue booked, deposits down, invitations chosen, Pinterest boards made, the whole cliché. The first 2 years were good. Honestly, they were great. Weekends were for hikes on trails an hour outside the city, or trying new restaurants, or collapsing on the couch with takeout and true crime marathons. Ryan would pause the show 10 minutes in and announce who he thought the killer was. He was infuriatingly accurate most of the time. He got along with my crew. When we were working near his dad's office, he'd swing by with coffee and donuts. He never whined when I had to run out for an emergency call at midnight, because he understood that when a production line dies, I don't get to say, I'll fix it tomorrow. There was one weekend, about a year and a half in, when we drove up to his family's cabin in the mountains. No service, no Wi-Fi, just us, a wood-burning stove, and 3 days of hiking, cooking over the fire, and talking about everything and nothing. That's the weekend we talked about kids. Maybe 2, he said, a boy and a girl. He wanted to keep working at the company, maybe move into a management role eventually. I told him I'd keep building my business, that we'd figure it out together when the time came. Sitting there with his head in my lap, firelight flickering across his face, it felt simple. It felt safe. It felt like something you could build a life on. Ryan's dad, Frank Dawson, ran Dawson Climate Solutions like a tight ship. Big warehouse, fleet of trucks, sales reps who treated contractors like royalty. I'd done side work for him long before Ryan and I got serious, upgrading their panels, adding circuits for new equipment, helping them handle the electrical load when they expanded. Frank always treated me with respect, paid on time, sent business my way if a contractor needed more complex electrical work than his in-house guys could handle. So when I say what happened later nuked more than just my relationship, I mean it. 8 months before the 3 a.m. doorbell, my company landed a massive contract, a $340,000 job to rewire an entire manufacturing facility that was still limping along on 1970s electrical systems. New panels, new distribution, full automation upgrade. The whole building needed to be brought up to current code, and the client made it clear. If we finished early, there was a big bonus on the table. It was the kind of job that could make or break a small company like mine. So I worked 70-hour weeks. Some nights I crashed in my truck at the job site because it was easier to grab 3 hours of sleep there than drive home and back again. My alarm went off at 4:30 a.m., and I'd be on site by 5, tool belt on, before the sun even bothered to show up. I told myself it was temporary, that once we wrapped the job, I'd take Ryan to Colorado like we'd talked about. A week in the mountains, just the two of us. No emails, no blueprints, no steel-toed boots. Just us. Classic mistake, right? Thinking you can pause a relationship like a TV show and hit play later without losing the plot. Around month 2 of that contract, I started noticing shifts. Ryan was out more. Guys' nights, he said. More late dinners. More Vanessa needed to talk nights. Vanessa. She was his ex-girlfriend from before we met. They'd dated off and on in their early 20s, burned hot and bright, then fizzled. At least that's how he told it. We're better as friends, he'd said. She knows me too well to date me again. Don't worry. The first time he introduced us, Vanessa gave me this once-over that felt like being measured and found lacking. She was gorgeous in that carefully curated Instagram kind of way. Perfect brows, hair that never frizzed, nails always on point. She also had a habit of saying things like, I just don't get why people rush into serious relationships. I mean, settle if you want, but I'd rather keep my options open. She'd say it while looking directly at Ryan, or at me, or both. I knew she didn't like me. Or maybe she didn't like that Ryan had moved on and put a ring on someone else. Either way, every time she came around, he got a little more defensive, a little more distant, like she was whispering reminders of a version of himself he wasn't ready to let go of. Then his spending changed too. New clothes, new shoes, new watch. He signed up for some ridiculously expensive gym across town, the kind with eucalyptus towels and ambient lighting, despite never having been gym guy in the entire time I'd known him. I got a raise, he said when I asked. Dad gave me more responsibility at the office. We're doing great. I want to look the part. Reasonable. On paper. Still, there was something off about the way he said it. Too practiced. Like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Our bedroom started smelling different too. Not bad. Just not like the cologne I'd bought him last Christmas. A new scent. Subtle. Clean. Like ocean air and cedar and something I couldn't name. His phone lived face down on the counter now. An upgrade from before, when it would just sit there, unlocked, forgotten. He changed his passcode from our anniversary date to something random. My sister snooped through my photos last time she was over, he said when I asked. I just want a little privacy. You get it, right? I did get wanting privacy. I also got that if nothing has changed, you don't suddenly start hiding things. But I was exhausted. The job was swallowing me whole, and the idea of picking a fight over passcodes when I could barely keep my eyes open felt impossible. So I filed it away next to the other small things that didn't quite add up. My birthday was the next big red flag I pretended wasn't one. We'd planned something simple. Dinner at our usual Italian place, the one where the waitress had our order memorized and always slipped us extra garlic knots. I finished on site early for once, hustled home, showered, put on makeup I hadn't worn in weeks. I was stupidly excited to spend a normal evening with my fiancé. Ryan was supposed to meet me at 6. He walked in at 8. Sorry, babe, he said, still in his work shirt. Dad and I got stuck in a meeting with a supplier. They're messing up a shipment, and it turned into a whole thing. His makeup, if you could call it that, was fresh. Hair carefully styled. That new cologne hovering around him like fog. You redid your hair in the office? I asked lightly. He blinked, just once, before plastering on a smile. Yeah. Meeting ran long. I wanted to look human. There was no gas smell on his clothes, no sign he'd filled up the car, like he said when he explained the extra time. I didn't call him on any of it. I swallowed my questions with a forkful of pasta and told myself I was overthinking because of stress. I remember blowing out the candle on the dessert the restaurant sent over and thinking, I wish I could turn my brain off for just one day. 6 weeks before the 3 a.m. scene, we went to one of Frank's family barbecues. The usual crowd was there, employees, extended family, kids running through sprinklers. Frank stood by the grill like a king in front of his throne. That's when I noticed Ryan and one of Frank's managers, Troy Brennan, talking by the smoker, heads close, laughing. I'd met Troy once or twice. Loud guy. 2 tight shirts to show off gym muscles. One of those men who says champ and sweetheart to strangers like it's cute. I watched Troy say something, watched Ryan throw his head back and laugh, watched Troy's hand brush Ryan's arm for a fraction of a second too long. Not inherently suspicious. People touch, people talk. Still, something in my gut went cold. When I walked over, both of them shut down mid-sentence. Ryan shifted, suddenly hyper-aware of my presence. Troy clapped him on the shoulder and walked away with a quick nod at me that didn't reach his eyes. "You okay?" I asked Ryan. "Yeah, work stuff. You don't want to hear it," he said. He grabbed a beer, changed the subject, and started telling me a story about a kid nearly slipping in the sprinkler. Later that night, over greasy takeout in my friend Jake's office, I told him about it. Jake has been my best friend since we were 16. Two grease-streaked kids who figured out how to pull and rebuild an engine in his dad's garage. Now he runs a diesel shop and looks like he's made entirely of stubbornness and coffee. "Minnie," he said slowly, chewing, "you know he's acting shady, right?" "He's just stressed. Work's busy for him too," I said. Jake shook his head. "Stressed people eat ice cream and complain about life. They don't suddenly start dressing like influencers, upgrading their entire wardrobe and switching passcodes. You're not dumb. Don't act like you don't see it." "I'm tired," I said. "I'm probably reading into things. Once this contract is over, we'll take that Colorado trip. We'll be fine." He stared at me for a long beat, then sighed. "Okay, but when this crashes, don't say I didn't warn you." I rolled my eyes and changed the subject. 3 weeks later, my crew and I crushed the manufacturing job. Final inspection passed on a Thursday. The client handed over the $15,000 early completion bonus I'd been chasing like oxygen. I booked a Friday flight to meet a potential new client 3 states over, quick overnight, sign the contract, fly back Saturday morning, surprise Ryan with the good news, and finally have a weekend together where we weren't ships passing in the night. That was the plan. The universe laughed. First, the flight got delayed, then delayed again, then finally canceled altogether. The gate agent said weather, but when I looked out the window, the sky was clear. It didn't matter. I was too done to fight. I rebooked on another airline, landed back in my city around 2:30 a.m., and drove home on autopilot. I pulled into my driveway at 2:55 a.m. All the lights were off, except the soft glow upstairs from our bedroom window. I grabbed my duffel, walked up to the front door, reached into my jacket pocket for keys that weren't there, and realized my mistake. Fine, I thought, pressing the doorbell. He'll open up. I'll scare him half to death, we'll laugh, and tomorrow we'll finally talk. Instead, a stranger opened my door and called my fiancé babe. And from upstairs, Ryan told him to say he was asleep. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even ask Ryan who the half-dressed stranger was. I just walked past him, his stunned face still hanging halfway over the railing, and set my duffel onto the kitchen chair like a robot completing a task. Then I sat down. Silence settled between us, like a fog, thick, suffocating, impossible to see through. Ryan came down the stairs slowly, one hand gripping the banister, his voice trembling. "Minnie, I can explain." He couldn't. Not convincingly. Not after another man had answered my door. Not after hearing Ryan's voice drift down from our bedroom like I was some salesman interrupting his beauty sleep. Ryan tried anyway. "It was a neighbor. He, needed help with something." Then, "No, wait, he's a friend of my cousin." Then, "Actually, I don't even know him. Maybe he broke in? I wasn't awake. I didn't..." Each lie tripped over the last one like dominoes falling. I let him talk. I stared at the wall behind his head like I couldn't hear a single word he was saying. He finally broke, tears starting down his cheeks. "Minnie, please say something." I didn't, because if I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure whether I would scream, sob, or calmly ask him which drawer he wanted his belongings in when he left. So I said nothing, and that terrified him more than any explosion could have. He sank onto the opposite chair, shaking. "We can talk in the morning. I just need to think clearly. Please." "Fine," I said quietly. One night. One night so my mind wouldn't make decisions soaked in adrenaline. One night so he couldn't say I blindsided him. One night so I could get proof, not excuses. His relief was massive. He thought it meant forgiveness. He didn't understand the difference between pausing and staying. He went upstairs. I heard drawers open, water running, footsteps pacing. But I stayed in the dark kitchen. I didn't sleep, not for a single second. Instead, I replayed the last 8 months. Every late night, every Vanessa needs me, every new outfit, every gym trip, every lie I'd swallowed because I was too damn tired to peel it open. And then, around 5:17 a.m., I saw something on the counter near the coffee maker. A set of keys. Not Ryan's. Not mine. a leather keychain embossed with Dawson Climate Solutions, Frank's company. The stranger worked for Ryan's father. I turned the keychain over in my palm and felt something solid click into place. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't even recent. This was calculated, convenient, familiar. I left the house before sunrise. The following. I got into my truck, stared at the house through the rear view, and watched as the silver Lexus idled 2 doors down. The same man from earlier slipped inside, head down, shoulders hunched like a kid sneaking out after curfew. He pulled off. I followed. Not chasing, not confronting, just collecting data. 10 minutes later, he parked at a high-end gym, no surprise there, and went in. I took a photo of the plate and sent it to my friend Chris, who works in insurance. 20 minutes later, he texted back, Troy Brennan, 38, married, 2 kids, regional sales manager, Dawson Climate Solutions. Ryan's father's employee. The final puzzle piece clicked. My breath left my lungs, not from pain, from clarity. I drove straight to Jake's shop. He was elbow deep in a diesel transmission when I walked in. I must have looked terrible because he didn't say hi, didn't make a joke, didn't even blink. What happened? He said, not asked. I told him everything. He dropped the wrench so hard it clattered across the concrete. I freaking knew it. I'm not here for an I told you so, I said quietly. Well, you're getting one anyway. He wiped his hands. Now, what do you want to do? I don't know, but I need to protect myself. Good, he said. Then you follow my list, exactly. He held up one grease-stained finger at a time. Document everything. Lock down your accounts. And call a lawyer, today. I nodded because I already knew he was right. Jake poured me coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and survival. Then he handed me his office phone. Call Patricia, now. The lawyer. By 10:00 a.m., I was sitting in a leather chair opposite Patricia Huang, a woman who looked like she ate panic for breakfast. She let me tell the entire story without interrupting once. When I finished, she leaned back and tapped her pen against her notepad. You own the house outright? Yes. And his name is nowhere on the deed? No, she nodded. Then legally, he's a guest. You can remove him at any time. A strange, hollow relief washed over me. Close your joint accounts, she said. Take your half. Leave his. Everything else stays separate. I don't want to take advantage. You're not, she cut in sharply. You're protecting yourself. He cheated. You didn't. She outlined everything. Password changes. Documenting every inconsistency. Having a plan in case Ryan tried to smear me or drain accounts out of spite. Her voice was brisk, but gentle enough not to break me. When I left her office, I had a folder of instructions and a bill for $500. Worth every penny. The lockdown. By noon, I had transferred half the joint checking to my personal account, $6,000 exactly. I left Ryan his half. I wasn't out for revenge. I just refused to be blindsided again. Then I changed every password. Banking, email, utilities, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. All of it. Not because it mattered financially, but because it sent a message. The door you opened for someone else has now closed behind you. Then I blocked his number. Not forever, just for the day. I needed silence to think. The evening after, around 6 p.m., I drove back to the house. Ryan sat on the couch, eyes red, phone clutched in his hands. He tried to act calm, like he wasn't vibrating with panic. A notification flashed on his lock screen before he turned it face down. From Vanessa. Don't tell her anything until you talk to a lawyer. Of course. Ryan swallowed hard. Minnie, we need to talk. Yes, I said, we do. He opened his mouth, but I spoke first. I know who he is. Ryan froze. Troy Brennan, I said. 38, married, 2 kids, works for your dad, drives a silver Lexus, left his keys on my counter. Color drained from his face. It was the first honest reaction he'd given me in months. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like a fish gasping at air. Minnie, I didn't want to. It wasn't. I held up a hand. He went silent instantly. I walked upstairs, grabbed a duffel, swept a week's worth of clothes into it, and came back down. Ryan was exactly where I left him. Still frozen, still drowning. Where are you going? He asked. Somewhere that isn't here. Minnie, please let me explain. You had your chance, I said calmly. You lied instead. I turned toward the door. Minnie, he whispered, voice cracking. Don't leave. But I did. And as the door shut behind me, there was no anger, just the quiet, brutal certainty that something massive had collapsed and I needed to get out before it crushed me. I checked into a small hotel near Jake's shop, one of those places with faded carpets, humming AC units, and a front desk clerk who didn't care why a woman was checking in with puffy eyes at 7 p.m. I set my duffel down and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in hours, everything was quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, then a rapid fire of notifications. But I didn't look. I wasn't ready to see Ryan's name filling the screen. Instead, I opened my laptop. If Ryan thought he was the only one who could keep secrets, he was wrong. The investigation. I looked up Troy Brennan. His social media was nauseating. Photos of his wife, Amanda, a nurse with the kindest smile I'd ever seen. Photos of their kids building sandcastles. Family dinners, holiday cards. He looked like a man who lived inside a picture frame, perfectly posed, carefully crafted. The kind of man who would sneak into my house at 3 a.m. and then drive his Lexus to the gym like nothing happened. I saved everything. Then I scrolled more. Troy at office parties. Troy at barbecues. Troy standing behind Ryan in photos I had scrolled past 100 times without noticing. They had been circling each other far longer than I realized. A pit opened in my stomach. This wasn't stress. Wasn't Vanessa whispering in his ear. Wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a long, winding, carefully hidden affair. The truth, when you see it all at once, feels like stepping off a curb you didn't know was gone. Amanda. 3 days after I left, I got a call from an unknown number. This time I answered. Is this Minnie Kratz? Yes. This is Amanda Brennan. My grip tightened around my phone. I think we should talk, she said softly. We met the next morning at a small coffee shop. She looked exhausted, pale, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling around her cup. I'm so sorry, I blurted before I could stop myself. She shook her head. You didn't do anything wrong. Troy did. Her voice was steady, but her eyes, God, her eyes were broken. She told me she'd found messages on Troy's phone weeks before I discovered anything. When she confronted him, he called her paranoid, told her she was imagining things. Gaslit her until she doubted her own instincts. Then Frank fired Troy. Everything came out. Amanda pulled out a slim folder and slid it toward me. Inside were printed screenshots of messages between Ryan and Troy. Dozens of them. 6 months worth. Plans to meet. Jokes about me never noticing. Comments about how I was always working too much, how I wouldn't get it, how being with someone like Troy made Ryan feel seen. Some messages made me physically sick. Amanda reached across the table and touched my hand. We're both better off without them, she whispered. And that was the moment I stopped blaming myself for every red flag I ignored. The call from Frank. Later that day, my phone rang again. Hello, I answered. It's Frank, he said, Ryan's father. His voice was tight, controlled. I think we should talk, he said. About what? I said coolly. About what happened between you and Ryan. So Ryan had told him something. I already knew what version he probably gave. Poor Ryan, blindsided, heartbroken, locked out of his own home. All right, I said, here's my version. I told him everything, finding Troy, the keys, the lies, the evidence. When I said Troy's name, Frank went silent, a long, heavy silence. Finally, he said, I didn't know. I believed him. Frank runs a big company, but he doesn't micromanage personal lives. Still, there was shame in his voice. And anger. I fired him, Frank said, effective immediately. Good. Amanda is devastated. I know, I said. She didn't deserve this. And neither did you, he added quietly. I didn't expect him to say that. And I didn't realize how much I needed to hear it. The locks. That afternoon, I went back to the house. Ryan's car wasn't there. Good. I called a locksmith. Cost me $350. Worth every cent. Then I texted him. Your things are in the garage. You have until Sunday to pick them up. After that, they're gone. He called within seconds. I didn't answer. He called again. Still didn't answer. Then my phone buzzed with a flood of texts. Please don't do this. This is my home too. You can't kick me out. I have rights. I sent one reply. Check the deed. You have no legal claim to this house. My lawyer confirmed it. Pick up your things by Sunday. Then I muted the thread. The meltdown. Ryan arrived an hour later. With Vanessa. Of course. She stood behind him with her arms crossed, like some deranged moral support henchwoman. Ryan pounded on the door. Minnie, open up. I picked up the phone and called the non-emergency police line. 20 minutes later, an officer arrived. He checked the deed, checked Ryan's ID, turned to him. Sir, you do not live here. I do. You're not on the deed, the officer said calmly. You are legally considered a guest. If Ms. Kratt asks you to leave, you must leave. Vanessa hissed, This is insane. The officer looked at me. Do you want to press trespassing charges? I paused. Ryan froze. Vanessa's eyes went wide. Oh no, Phil, I said finally. Not today. But the message was clear. Try this again and you'll leave in handcuffs. Ryan and Vanessa left with twin glares carved into their faces. It was almost funny, if it hadn't been so pathetic. Sunday. Ryan came with a U-Haul and 2 friends. I opened the garage, stood on the porch, watched him load everything he owned. Just before he left, he turned toward me. "Minnie," he whispered, voice breaking. "Can we please talk?" "No." He flinched like I'd hit him. "There's nothing left to say," I added softly. "You made your choice. Now live with it." He cried. I didn't. Vanessa flipped me off from the passenger seat. I waved. The aftermath. Ryan started posting vague messages online. Toxic relationships ruin good men. Some people kick you out when you make one mistake. No one knows how hard this has been for me. His friends commented with sympathy emojis and back-patting nonsense. I ignored all of it. Jake didn't. Under one of Ryan's dramatic posts, he wrote, "Interesting perspective. Wonder what Minnie's side sounds like." Chaos erupted. People started asking questions. Ryan's narrative crumbled. Posts disappeared. Then his entire account vanished for a week. Meanwhile, my life? It grew. My business doubled. I hired more crew, won bigger contracts, upgraded equipment, took risks I'd been too mentally drained to take before. Because when you're living with someone who lies to your face every day, your brain is constantly on fire, even when you don't consciously know why. Once Ryan was gone, silence returned. And with silence came focus. And with focus came success. Their karma. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard bits and pieces. Ryan had to move back in with his dad. Frank couldn't fire him outright, but told him he needed to find another job. The scandal with Troy made it impossible for him to stay. He ended up folding sweaters at a clothing store in the mall. Vanessa ghosted him eventually. It turns out she liked the drama, not the man. Troy lost his career, lost his house, lost custody, was last seen selling used cars downtown. Amanda, thank God, filed for divorce and rebuilt her life without him. I didn't feel happy about any of it. Not sad either. Just neutral. They built their own bombs. I simply stopped standing in the blast radius. The grocery store. 4 months after it all ended, I saw Ryan again. In the cereal aisle. He looked smaller, thinner, tired. We made eye contact. I nodded, polite and distant, and kept walking. He hurried after me. "Minnie, please, can we talk? Just for a minute?" I sighed. I didn't owe him anything. But closure doesn't always come from the other person. Sometimes it comes from hearing your own voice stay steady. "What do you want, Ryan?" His voice cracked. "I want to say I'm sorry, properly." I studied him. He meant it. But apologies don't rebuild burned house frames. "I don't need your apology," I said gently. He blinked hard. "I miss you." "You miss what we had. Big difference." "Hey, can't we just—" "No," I said softly but firmly. "We can't." He swallowed. "I never thought I'd lose you." "You didn't lose me," I said. "You gave me away." He broke. I didn't. "Take care of yourself," I added. Then I paid for my coffee and walked out. I didn't look back. Not once. The end of it. If you're still here, listening to my story, then hear this. You are not heartless for leaving someone who already left you emotionally. You're not cruel for locking the door someone else opened to lies. And you're not wrong for choosing your peace over their chaos. Sometimes you don't need revenge, you just need distance. And life will handle